Okay, we'll end it there. But,
wow. Did that, you didn't affect that, you didn't touch that, that's how it came through the phone?
That's exactly how it came through.
And how'd you know who it was from?
I have friends in high places.
Could have been my mother, I mean.
Yeah. But, I'll tell you what's interesting about that is that we've been working with this. We've been, at ECETI, we have undeniable evidence. We have 30 years of evidence of ships coming in, low level, flying over, interacting with the people on the ground, lighting up, making turns, morphing from 1 to 3, just amazing footage. And that's been going on for a long time. And we've been working with these different entities, and it's going so far beyond proving the nuts and bolts and we need to stop looking in the past to what's happening. The ancient aliens are here, and they're here now. And the most important thing, if you really, there's an old saying, we are the aliens we've been looking for, because the earth has been colonized over and over, and there's been cataclysms that have come, and all these ancient temples were built by, us, basically, and we are the aliens. I mean, we've been here for a long time, and I know this really shatters some people's belief systems, but it's the same thing about the lamas talk about us seeking God. They said in the West, people will go out to their barn and they saddle up their horse and they hop on top of it and they go out looking for it. And you've been sitting on it all the time, So it's very important. We're so externally programmed. Everything is external. And it's internal. The whole universe is within you. And right here is the one consciousness that encompasses all consciousness and all planes and dimensions throughout the multiverse. So when you drop into the heart and expand in awareness, you're going to meet ET along the way. So they're in these other higher dimensions. They're very spiritually and technologically advanced. And when you reach a certain level of consciousness, they'll find you. And that's the way it works. And so it's so important that we drop in the heart, we send out love and joy and bliss to them. And there is discernment at times. You need to be discerning and learn how to heal unseen negative influences and set boundaries. But that's what we teach at the ranch, and how to have a safe environment for contact and to work with the benevolent ones and the ones that are here for planetary liberation and to awaken and heal and empower us.
Well, thank you, James. Yes.
Right, thank you.
That's sort of a common theme here that, people have been saying that, we are those evolving beings. We are the Anunnaki we've been waiting for, in a sense. So, this is our evolution as a planetary civilization, I feel, is like our awakening as a cosmic consciousness. So I know you, Michael, have had quite a journey going from contact and including that into your spirituality and your religion in a way. You want to talk about your...
Yeah, there's a...
talk closer.
There's a similarity, obviously, in, I think, all of what we've heard. For me, it was more on a personal level where I had to get out of my head. I love to be up here, so I don't have to think. I don't have to feel. And what my contacts with 3 separate star races has taught me to look at those areas where my fear of them, which was huge, for all the obvious reasons, and maybe not so obvious, where in my life I was living fearfully. I had to take that fear as a metaphor and look at other parts of, whether it was interpersonal relationships, whether it was being a man of color in America, whether it was being a minister. I had to it made me look inside. And I was trying to make the word flesh. If I had the idea, but what would that look like in real life? What would being an evolved person look like when someone was plucking my nerves in a grocery store, or, someone gave me the finger when they cut me off, or, what would that look like? Because, it can all be theory. And so I had to do some soul searching and do my own healing, and which I'm still doing. But also I had to get over this belief in separation, that somehow whether you were Tea Party and I wasn't, whether you were white and I wasn't, whether, not that I had that deeply embedded, but there were subtle ways where I had this us versus them kind of paradigm. What I did not have is the paradigm of all ETs, all Greys are bad, all reptilians are bad, all Nordic people are good. You know, I was just trying to get away from these dichotomies. And so the journey continues, and I wouldn't change it for anything in the world. It's made me look at some things about myself that I wasn't proud of, but in human evolution, that's what you do. You know, if you go to a therapist and all you talk about is how wonderful you are, then it's time to see another therapist. And that's true. Not that I was doing that, but I'm just saying. And so, you know, I had, what is real? What is real? And then I could be up here and I could talk to you about, you know, the various dimensions and what have you, but what would that look like in my everyday interaction with a brother or sister who was plucking my nerves, or I was plucking their nerves? So that's, you can't lead where you haven't been, and so that's been my journey, with at least from these three brothers and sisters that I had encountered, the reptilians, the Greys, who were not really gray, they were kind of chalk colored, but and just recently these kind of Nordic looking brothers and sisters that have decided to visit.
So what was your process of kind of raising yourself up in that situation?
To look at the fear, to look where I had those two choices of love versus fear. Some of that took therapy. Some of that took being regressed by Bud Hopkins and the late Dr. Gene Mundy. Some of it had me going to a 12-step program. I had to peel the onion to find out who I was because I had all this armor that I didn't know I had. And, you know, it was one thing to, you know, spirituality is not something you put on or a way you act, it's who you are. And so I had to get past all the mess to kind of find out, you know, who I am really. So I had to unlearn a lot of things.
Thank you. Thank you. So with Rosemary, Ellen Guiley's work, you work in those realms. You work in, like the thing that James played for us, you're recording those interdimensional voices all the time. So how do you integrate the spirituality, the ET, the metaphysics, the paranormal into sort of a one cosmology for yourself and for us?
When I was small, I had encounters with angels and fairies, and I thought everybody did. And I think when you're a kid, you think that your experiences are very common to most people. And as I got older, I realized that not everybody has those kinds of experiences, extraordinary experiences. And not only that, there are plenty of people around at all times who tell you that it's all in your head, it's your imagination, it doesn't exist, it's demonic, whatever, to dissuade you from the fact that you had an extraordinary experience. So as I got older, that really fueled my curiosity as to why is this such an uneven playing field? Why do people have experiences beyond consensus reality that are not all shared by everyone? And yet we have similar kinds of experiences, both good and bad and even in between. And for many people, very little way of validating those experiences because of the influences of other people, and also because of where we're at with our own worldview. So what really fueled my career, and I'm a Jill of all trades because I have my fingers in many pies. I work on the light side and the dark side. I'm an energy healer, a tarot reader, a past life regressionist, a paranormal investigator. I study entity encounter experiences. I've been involved in ufology for a long time, either as an enthusiast or as a researcher. Mysterious creatures and cryptozoology, mystical philosophy, and metaphysics. And all of these things are integrated in various ways. So my work has been a very broad brush spectrum on all kinds of entity experiences, and I've had a lot over the years, both positive and negative. Some I haven't gone looking for, and some I have gone looking for. And I like the comments that have been made tonight about the fear, because what the individual faces so often, regardless of the experience, is at least anxiety, if not fear, about how, if I accept the experience, how is it going to change me, especially when I can't validate it with other people. So a lot of my work has focused on the how and why of why we have extraordinary experiences. I don't try to prove them, because this is largely a personal truth for most people. So how do we have these experiences, individually and collectively? Why do we have them? What are the patterns of those experiences throughout history? And what does that say about the changing nature of human consciousness, which we are all contributing to? So the challenge for the individual, and it depends on what kind of worldview you have, your family, your orientation, how you are going to be challenged by your experiences. They are largely subjective, and even though you can compare them to the experiences of others, and you can come to events and read literature and get intellectual validation, it's still a subjective experience. It's going to be pulled through the filter of your personality, your background, your upbringing, your spiritual training and conditioning, and the influences of people around you. So when we have extraordinary experiences, whether they are good or puzzling, neutral and puzzling, or even negative, each of us is challenged to do something with that experience. And so you have the choice of ignoring it if it's too unsettling. And even a good experience can shake the foundation of your worldview. Or you can find some explanation that's sort of satisfactory and kind of slough it off. Or you can integrate it. And the only way you're going to advance your consciousness individually, you yourself, and as a contribution to the greater whole, is to integrate it. And for some individuals, this becomes a very long process. And for others, it's a little easier. But experiences that challenge our worldviews are especially difficult for many people to deal with, because you have to stretch the boundaries of what you can accept as reality. And over the course of time, well, you know, I was kind of unusual in my family, which was a traditional Methodist, and from a very early age, I was convinced of reincarnation and the existence of otherworldly beings, and all of these things, much to the consternation of my parents. But even with that beginning, over the course of time, I've still had to stretch out my boggle point over and over again in terms of what I can accept as my view of reality. So that's the challenge for each and every one of us, and it's a journey that we have to make personally. There is an absolute truth to an experience that is yours and yours only, and you have to arrive at that truth and hold it in your heart and allow it then to open other doorways. And that's really how consciousness expands, it refines, and it elevates.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Does someone have some technology on over here?
Oh, you were hearing some fire? We're looking to quiet
radio
a radio
playing
or
or something.
Yeah, we were looking to. What's that? Oh, it's from
Okay.
We're looking to quiet that.
Thank you.
But from what Roseanne and everyone said here, it brings us back to Danny Sheehan, because you've developed the Worldview Institute, and it really comes back down to worldviews. And you know what I in my research understanding is that Einstein, his theory of relativity and quantum physics and Heisenberg's uncertainty principle rearranged how consciousness relates to reality, in the sense that we live in a subjective reality. There is no objective world out there, despite what mainstream science says. So I think, for me, part of this new worldview is the understanding of the subjective reality is primary over some objective point of view. So actually, starting with Danny, I'd like to have everyone sort of answer that question about what does the new worldview look like integrating these other realities, the metaphysics, the paranormal, and especially the ETs, into something where we don't have to no longer question it, but it's something we are educated with from childhood into, like, okay, there's no question about this. So Danny, talk about worldviews.
Well, that's interesting, because when I represented Dr. John Mack at Harvard when he was called up in front of this faculty committee for writing this book, and John did not start out having any particular interest in the issue of extraterrestrial intelligence or even extraordinary experiences. He was a regular clinical psychiatrist who had risen through the academic ranks to being the chairman of the department at Harvard. And when he had a number of people brought to him who had these extraordinary experiences, specifically with extraterrestrial beings and UFOs, he had a number of, for example, high-level military officials, colonels and a one-star general, brought to him to actually do psychological workups on them after they had reported an experience like this. And in the first 2 or 3 times that John met with people like this and brought them through an entire process of doing an evaluation of them psychologically, he began to become quite surprised at the nature and intensity of the experiences that they had and the willingness that they had to come forward to talk about these, even in light of the jeopardy that this presented to their careers. And so he was fascinated by these experiences, and he began to talk about them with people. And Bud Hopkins then began to bring more people to John, from various walks of life. A contractor from New Hampshire who had on a Friday night come home from work and was sitting before getting ready to watch the news on the television, and had this event take place of a vehicle landing in the field next to his house, and not being able to remember what happened to him, and John regressing him back using holotropic breathing, Stanislav Grof's holotropic breathing exercises. And John became so struck by these experiences that he wrote an article for the New England Journal of Medicine and sent it in. And John was a Pulitzer Prize-winning writer. He had written the definitive psychobiography of T.E. Lawrence, of Lawrence of Arabia. So when he submitted the article, he expected that it would be published, but they sent it back to him telling him they wouldn't publish it. And so he reworked the entire article and put in more footnotes and a lot more details and sent it back to them. And within 2 days, the assistant editor of the New England Journal of Medicine brought the unopened envelope back to him to his office at Harvard and said, Dr. John Relman, who is the editor and publisher of the New England Journal of Medicine, wanted me to bring this back to you and give it to you and let you know that it had not been opened, it has not been read, and it will not be published. And so John was so upset about this that he called a publisher and began to publish this as a book. And when it was published, he was contacted by, I'll talk about this a lot tomorrow, there's a whole workshop we have on this which has to do with this issue of worldviews, because when I appeared as his attorney in front of this faculty committee, and they began to, right off the bat, start to interrogate him about why he had written this book, and was he charging people for these services? Had he filled out any insurance forms for them? And I interrupted, and I said to Dr. Relman, I said, "Excuse me, Dr. Relman, can you tell me exactly what it is that we're doing here? You know, what is this faculty committee? It obviously has not been organized under the Association of University Professors. It's not a legitimate hearing panel of any sort. What are we doing here?" And he said, "Well, when Dr. Mack wrote this book, the dean of the medical school started receiving lots of phone calls, and they were asking him all kinds of questions, which he found himself unable to answer. And so he decided he would talk with Dr. Mack directly and get some information from him. And he thought as long as he was going to be doing that, why didn't he have some other faculty members come and participate in this? Well, that when John showed up for this friendly discussion, it turned out that they were arrayed in a major panel like this up at the front of the room with legal counsel for Harvard University sitting there next to them. And they began to excoriate him for writing this book. And he ended up asking for legal counsel, and because I'd gone to Harvard College and Harvard Law School and Harvard Divinity School, he asked me to represent him in front of the faculty. So when I said to Dr. Relman, I said, what is it you're wanting? He said, well, as he said, the dean was unable to answer these questions, so we just thought we'd ask him some of these questions. And I said, okay. I said, if that's the case, I said, can you tell us, in the spirit of cooperation, can you tell us who is it that called him? And there was this big deadly silence that lasted for like maybe 15 seconds, and the legal counsel for Harvard turned to him and went like this. And he said, I'm sorry, we're not at liberty to discuss that. And I said, oh, really? I said, well, okay, in that event, if we're here to answer the questions that were being asked, can you tell us what were the questions that were asked? And the legal counsel for Harvard told him not to answer. So he said, I'm sorry, we're not at liberty to discuss this. And so I said, well, I think that we should just tell you, in all fairness, that we just spent the weekend with Lawrence Rockefeller, and Lawrence Rockefeller has agreed to fund whatever type of presentation we needed to make to you as the faculty about the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence and about the UFO phenomena, and we're fully prepared to do that. And the legal counsel jumped to her feet, and she said, absolutely not. She said, we're not going to have this set of hearings turned into some type of circus. And so I said, well, the fact is we're going to present this to you because this is going to be relevant. And John and I got up and walked out. And John finally, it dawned on him that what this was, he started to write a manuscript about this, which I think I have the only copy of in the world because he asked me to look at it before he published it, before he was killed. It's called The Clash of When Worldviews Collide. Actually, and so he wanted me to work with him after the faculty committee stood down and apologized to him. He wanted to establish a worldview institute at Harvard University, and I became legal counsel for his project on extraordinary experience research. I became legal counsel for the Worldview Institute. I ended up becoming legal counsel for the Disclosure Project that we had in Washington, D.C., and the more recent Citizens Council. So I've actually served in this capacity as a legal counsel, trying to be a bridge, basically, between the experiencers and the people who are extraordinarily moved spiritually and philosophically and intellectually by this entire unique issue in our culture, and trying to be able to assist in reaching out to the representatives of the established order, who are in defense of their own fourth paradigm, scientific, logical, positivist, materially grounded reality, which they have embraced as a religion, and they do not want to hear this. So we've spent a lot of time on this issue, and in fact, the Monday workshop that I've been asked to present, the intensive, is all about this issue, all about the range of the octave of worldviews, of human worldviews, what the underlying predicate beliefs are, what the interface is between these worldviews, and how this new eighth paradigm worldview that actually brings to a full closure the full octave of worldviews that our human family is capable of experiencing. And what are the qualities and characteristics of this worldview? How do they compare to the other worldviews? That's what we're going to be addressing on Monday.
Thank you.
So it's a major subject, and I know that we're all very interested.
No, thank you, Dan. Thanks for working with John, who John Mack really gave validity and credence to this by putting his career on the line and saying, no, these are real experiences. He used to talk about that story about the guy investigating seances for some organization that didn't believe it, and he comes back and he says, I think they're true. And he says, the committee said, we don't care if it's true, we still don't believe it. So it's like, John used to tell that better. But so Linda, out of all the work you've done, I mean, years and years, starting with the cattle mutilations and all the people that have disclosed their own private experiences to you, what does a worldview look like that integrates this all into an acceptable reality that, you know, makes it okay for us to live in a interactive cosmos?
It comes down to a phone call I had from a rancher about 5 months ago. It was his 8th mutilation of a very expensive and large Hereford. He raises them down in southwestern Nebraska, and over the last 18 months he had now I think it's about 10 animals. And 4 or 5 months ago he called me and he said, "I'm convinced it's ETs. I think you're right." And he said, "Who do I go to just say, if you need my animals, let's do a trade?" And I thought, that is really a revolution. From the last 50, 60 years, if the animal mutilations are a harvest of genetic material on this planet that has been going on for a very, very long time, much longer than the 20th and 21st centuries, there has to be a need. And whatever the need is, and we could go into a long discussion about those possibilities, but let's just say a need. And that a rancher in 2014 to 2015 on his own is prepared to say, "Look, you're going to keep doing this, just give me something to barter on this planet in exchange." There was something about it that said to me, it is such a healthy attitude of humanity that I think if the whole planet were given a chance with the truth, all of it, that we might be able to move into a barter system.
No, so a planet that's been given the truth by governments, let's just hypothetically go there, what does that world look like? And we can ask everyone that too.
Well, I wonder if ISIS would lose its power on the planet now if tomorrow the headlines were, "We're all somebody else's creation in extraterrestrial terms, therefore humanity are androids, and for there to be wars and this much killing over whose God is superior to another, that is insanity."
Thank you. Dr. Dream, what does your future look like? What is the new world view, the new paradigm of consciousness?
I mean, I'm really excited about what I see and feel happening right now with people as they are allowing an expansion of their awareness, which is expanding their consciousness. And you know, it's going to take something to happen here for us to drop all of our petty stuff and realize that it is one world here, and that